You know, having one major issue is bad enough. Most people spend their lives trying to manage just one serious flaw. But Donald Trump? He's operating with a trifecta that makes things deeply concerning for someone who has held and wants to hold again the most powerful office in the world. Let's break this down. First, there are neurological issues, concerns about how his brain functions on a medical level. Then there are psychological problems, issues with his mental stability, emotional regulation, and behavior. Most mental health professionals who study behavior patterns, even from a distance, have consistently flagged this. And now, there's a third piece to this disastrous puzzle. The guy just isn't very smart. Not uninformed, not untrained. We're talking about a fundamental lack of intellectual capacity. The kind of stupidity that isn't fixed with time, effort, or experience. And what makes this especially dangerous is that Trump doesn't realize it. In fact, he believes he's the smartest man alive. That delusion is classic Dunning-Kruger effect, where someone is so incompetent they can't even comprehend how little they actually know. They overestimate themselves because they don't know enough to recognize their flaws. Now I've been trying for a long time to frame this in a way that really captures the magnitude of the issue. But this past week, Steve Benen, a writer and producer with MSNBC and The Rachel Maddow Show, put it into words perfectly in an op-ed that deserves attention. Steve Benen, I'm surprised by the degree to which the president is surprised. Trump apparently thought he'd assume power, use common sense, bark a few orders, and in a snap, problems would disappear. He instead faced a brutal learning curve as he racked up one humiliating failure after another. Let's pause on that. Benen is talking about Trump's first term. The man entered the White House with zero political experience. No time in office, no policy-making history, nothing. He believed he could run the country like one of his businesses. But spoiler alert, he's run most of those businesses into the ground too. Trump came in thinking he could just common sense his way through healthcare diplomacy, the economy, and international conflict. But very quickly, reality slapped him in the face. Remember in 2017 when he publicly said, "Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated." Literally everyone knew that. Healthcare is one of the most complex systems in American life, something that's been a legislative nightmare for decades. Even people who aren't into politics generally understand that it's a giant, tangled mess. But that quote wasn't just funny, it was terrifying. Because it showed us something important. Trump couldn't even begin to grasp the complexity of the issues he was responsible for. Now here's where it gets worse. An uninformed person can always learn. If you don't know something, you can study it. You can ask questions, you can put in the work. I've done that, you've done that, we all do it, every day. But what separates a regular person from someone like Trump is willful ignorance. He had every opportunity to understand how things work, but chose not to. And according to Benen, despite spending 4 years in the highest office of the land, Trump never evolved. In fact, Benen says he got worse. Steve Benen, it was amusing of course, because literally, everyone who's familiarized themselves with the governing details of healthcare policy is well aware of how incredibly complex and challenging the issue is. But Trump, upon arriving in the White House, was gobsmacked. And he is still, in his 5th year, behind the presidential learning curve. Think about that. 5 years later and he's still struggling to understand the basics. That's not just incompetence, that's dangerous regression. Imagine someone working a job for 4 years and somehow becoming worse at it. That doesn't happen unless something is very, very wrong. And that's why Benen ends his piece with a brutal but accurate assessment. Steve Benen Trump is almost certainly the slowest learner in the history of American presidential politics. I couldn't agree more. You know, back during the George W. Bush era, we used to have a lot of fun pointing out how unintelligent he often seemed, and to be fair, those criticisms weren't totally off. But here's the key difference. Bush knew he wasn't the smartest guy in the room. So what did he do? He surrounded himself with people who were smart. Evil, yes. Morally bankrupt? Absolutely. But they were intelligent, strategic people who understood how systems work. Trump's delusions of genius. Caroline Leavitt has the intelligence of a desk, the original commentary jokes. And while it sounds harsh, it reflects the very real problem of surrounding yourself with yes men and yes women who don't challenge you, don't teach you, and don't fix your flaws. They just enable them. This isn't a left versus right issue. It's not about parties, it's about competence. It's about whether a person, any person, is fit to make life-altering decisions for 330 million Americans. Because if we go by Benen's conclusion, and it's hard to argue against it, Trump is not only unqualified, he's proudly unqualified. He's the kind of leader who doesn't learn from his mistakes because he refuses to even acknowledge them. And that's the most dangerous kind of leader of all. Before you go, we just launched memberships for our most loyal supporters. As a member, you'll get early access to our daily videos, exclusive badges, custom emojis, and other perks that help you stand out in the comments. Before you go, we just launched memberships for our most loyal supporters. As a member, you'll get early access to our daily videos, exclusive badges, custom emojis, and other perks that help you stand out in the comments. If you enjoy our content and want to support independent political commentary, consider becoming a member today. Your support keeps this platform alive and growing. Thank you for watching, and for standing with us.